Hey everybody, welcome to the next installment in the Apex Deep Dive interview series. I'm Tim Britton, your head of community, and this is basically a little platform where we're introducing you to some of the participants that are going to be taking part in the Apex Challenge, but also tonight I get to introduce you to another one of our amazing ambassadors in the program. So it's my absolute pleasure to bring onto the stage Jess Miller. Good evening, Jess. How are you? Jess, do this for me.
No.
Look at that shoe collection that she's just got behind her. All her trainers just there in place. I'm an ultra. Look at me. And I didn't even clock it. Is that your treadmill folded up?
Yeah.
No. Look at her. She's in literally just like her own little cave of fitness heaven. Right, Jess, it's a pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much for joining us. So, if we just fast forward a tiny bit into like the first kind of event you did, it was a 10K race, is that right?
Yes, yeah. Once I got back into running, yeah.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about that race, why you picked that race, and just your experience of that race and after it.
Absolutely, yeah. So, so I had, as you say, I hadn't run for a while. I'd at uni, I'd kind of been in the SU more, and I'd had Freshers Week, and I kind of got caught on that, and then just never. I stopped the exercise really. And then I came out of uni and was, had a kind of a look around, and I was like, what do I want to do now? And I was like, well, I'm not at uni anymore, so I'm not going out with my friends so much. And I was like, I'll, get back into running. And I lived in London at the time, in North London, and there was a 10K race every week at Richmond Park. So I saw it, and it was like a £5 to sign up, and I was like, yeah, I'll go do it. And it was just 2 laps around the kind of inside bit of Richmond Park, and I turned up one Saturday having done no training. I was like, well, we'll see how it goes. Finished it was fine, and then I went back a few more times, and it was fine. I enjoyed getting back into the 10Ks, and I should really have been doing a bit more training. I just kind of turned up and plodded through them. And then, every time I kind of finished a 10K, I was like, I've got a medal, and like hang it up on my wall. And I was kind of like, looking and just being like, right, what can I kind of look to do next, really, sort of thing.
Okay, so you kind of got into your 10Ks. This got you a little bit back into your fitness, but is it fair to say that you didn't necessarily feel like a level of kind of fulfillment, and like you'd really kind of tick the boxes to say, I've really achieved something with that? And like, because a lot of us, quite often we do these events and then we feel really good after them because you go, oh my word, I've really tested myself. But was that not quite the case of this initial start back into fitness?
I think so. I think because before I'd stopped the running, I did do a lot of events, and I did a lot of cross country at school, and I did a lot of 10K events. So I think it's something I knew I could do, and I wasn't necessarily pushing myself. It wasn't something that I wasn't finishing a race and going, oh, I really did that well, I'm really proud of myself. It was just, I did a 10K, and I'd like hang the medal up and then look at it, and I'd be proud of myself for a short time, and then it would kind of fizzle out again.
Okay, so what was the next thing? So where did you kind of move on after your 10Ks? How did your kind of fitness progress to kind of where you are at now?
Yes, so I after the 10K, I kind of thought, what's the kind of next step up? And at Richmond again, they were doing a half marathon, so I signed up to a half marathon in the February, finished the half marathon, which again was a good event. I did enjoy it. And then finished the half marathon, and I was like, I think I'd like to train for a marathon. And I looked for one in the May, and I couldn't really seem to find a marathon around that time. And around that sort of time, I'd started following a lot more of running fitness central accounts on Instagram, and I'd seen a few things about 50K ultras, and I was like, well, that's only 8K more than a marathon. I reckon I could do that. So signed up to my first 50K in the May, and didn't do as much training as I should have done, but turned up to the event and finished it. like second from last, but I finished it, and I think that was the first event in a long time where I'd gone, I, you know, absolutely worked, you know, put everything out for that, like, and I finished it, and I am proud of this medal and this event. Yeah.
I was going to say, because it doesn't like it for most. Hey, I've never won a race ever in my
Oh
life.
no, I
I've
haven't. No.
never stood a podium. I've never been in the top people. And it's like, for me, it's always the taking part. Like,
Yes.
and I suppose for a lot of us, for a lot of people, that marathon kind of, it holds that holy grail moment or pinnacle in their life, because a lot of people think that's the pinnacle kind of a fitness. But to go and to make those crazy big jumps from a 10K to going, oh, it's only 8K more than, a full marathon. Like, you could say 8K, I could say it's like 5 miles. There's a lot of people out there that can run 5 miles. So they are huge, big jumps. But it's interesting that you kind of feel like the more, would you say, is it fairer to say that you feel the more that you kind of pushed yourself and the more taxing the actual event was, the more kind of pleasure you got from it?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, any race I kind of did in that year, I absolutely destroyed myself. And I think, I'd finish, if I did a 5 or a 10K, I wouldn't necessarily, I'd finish it, but I wouldn't feel that, I put everything into that. And I think, the more the next day I was hobbling around, and I was like, yeah, that was worth it.
Okay, so how did you kind of progress then? So I know you spoke to me about you kind of went on like a solo holiday trip that you said was kind of a bit kind of pinnacle in in a big sort of shift for you mentally into things. So where was that, and how did that kind of come about, and what did it lead you on to?
So I think, because this was still quite soon after uni, it reached a point where I was working my first adult job. I'd only ever really been on holiday with my family, and we'd always gone to places like Scotland, Yorkshire, the Lake District, Peak District, something always hilly and mountainy. And I was in my first job after finishing uni, and I was like, hey, I've got adult money now. Why don't I take myself away on like a little holiday? And it was so last minute. I think I gave myself 2 weeks, and because I hadn't really done much hiking or anything like that since I was a kid, I had none of the kit. So I ordered the next day pair of hiking boots from Amazon. I could, a backpack, and I found this super cheap self-catered cottage just outside of Windermere in the Lake District. I was like, I'm going to do this, and I got the train up because I'm learning to drive. I still can't drive, but I got the train up there. All the way, which from where I was in London took 8-9 hours by the time you'd done all the waiting around and the switches and that. And then I was in this little area where I could just get out the door and hike some mountains. And I got the bus up to, I want to say Grasmere. Probably wrong. Yeah. I think it was Grasmere. And then I hiked over, it probably wasn't Grasmere, I'm thinking about it. Basically, I got the bus up to somewhere more northern than the lakes, and I hiked Scafell Pike, and the weather was atrocious, and I came up the wrong way, and there was a false summit, and I was like, yeah, I'm at the top. And I was like, oh, I'm not at the top. And it carried on. And it was, and I eventually finished, and I got to the top, and I sat down and I cried. I was like, I did something. And I think that was the first time I'd actually really, because I had done a couple of races, but I think this was the first time I'd actually done something by myself. Because when you do the races, you're surrounded by people. There's so many similar characters that you just kind of ping off. And I am quite a chatty person. I will grab someone randomly, like, I really like your bag, and it will just start a whole conversation. But it was just such awful weather that day that there was just not a single other soul up there, apart from those that had come up from the other way. And I just happened to pick the most difficult route, which was so typical.
Okay,
yeah.
I'm not going to lie. You're not painting the most glorious picture as to how you wanted to carry on hiking. So how did you go from crying atop a Scafell Pike, going, "What have I done?" to now this kind of wonderful Jess runs ultras, doing these events, and we're gonna come on to some of the events that you've done, and I'm really intrigued as to how you got into doing some of these events and the experiences of them. But how did that feel then after that? What made you kind of go, right? Do you know what? If I get a better pair of boots, that I'm assuming those boots gave you the worst blisters in the world.
They did, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, what you thought. So how did you go from that experience then? So where did it transition for you? Where did that kind of this fondness for this hiking and punishment progress?
So, to be honest, it was when I got to the bottom and I went, that was great. No matter how awful it was on the way up and how much I cried at the top, I got to the bottom. I was like, that was fantastic. When can I do it again? And then from there, it just kind of it kind of snowballed really. So I'd kind of done a few Wainwrights when I was there, and then I found out about Wainwright bagging. So that's something that I then kind of carried on doing. I was like, oh, there's all these kind of different ones. And then I found out about the British Mountaineering Council and trainee mountain leader. So I signed up and I was like, oh, I'm going to be I still am a trainee mountain leader. And then just from there, so I met my partner, who's just as much into hiking and mountains as much as I am. Ideally, he had a car, so we could go to more remote places and like hike these kind of more out of the way mountains. And just the more I did it, really, the more I did just fall in love with it. And obviously, the kit grew, which then kind of has been able to support doing more of the out there adventures as well.
Okay, all right, so you've kind of now got your taste, you've got your feel for it. So let's kind of fast forward a little bit, because you told me that you did that 50K.
Mm-hmm.
Where did the first 100K come from? And where was it? Where did the idea of it come from? And what was the experience of it like?
Absolutely. So the first 100K I tried, I actually DNF. I didn't finish it. I got 13 miles in and my knees gave out because I hadn't done the strength and conditioning work that I needed to do. My IT bands weren't strong enough and my knees just collapsed. So the way I found it was, because I'd done the 50K, I'd followed a few more kind of ultra runners on Instagram, and they all seemed to be doing this 100K series that's mostly in summer. And it's one of the ones where you can walk the entire route if you wanted to. You can sprint it, you can split it over 2 days, and it was just really accessible. So I signed up to that to run it the whole way through. Didn't finish it, had to get a taxi all the way to the end, and again just sat and cried. And I was like, what went wrong? And I posted on social media and I was like, oh, I've failed everyone. I've been posting about the build up to this. And, the response to that was, you absolutely have not failed. Like, this is your first attempt. Like, go again. So I found another one in September, and I signed up to that one and I finished that one in the September. So that was my first 100K. So yes, the June I failed at 13 miles, and then in September I finished it.
So you did it. I'm sorry, I always look over this side to have a giant calendar on the wall. So June, you went 100K, didn't make it. So you thought naturally, oh, I'll give myself 2 months, and then you go out and crack it. This is, I mean, the word that's coming to my mind from to sum you up at the moment is perseverance. Like, you seem like such an individual that has such perseverance. It's like, okay, if I don't do this time, I'm just going to figure out another way that's going to do it. I'm not going to stop until I crack this. And I mean, that shows itself later in your story as well. The perseverance, the resilienceness within you, I think, is fantastic. Do you think that, just as I segue, because it's where mine goes, do you think that the events that you do and the kind of training and like the long distance stuff, do you think it naturally starts to build and toughen that resistance, not only like within you but with individuals?
As like a mental resistance, or more like a physical?
Yeah. Well, mentally, I suppose, is where I was thinking, but physically, I suppose the adaptations will happen. But mentally, do you find that it's almost like a byproduct of what happens? Like, this resilience starts to build within you?
Yes, definitely. I mean, you know, I mean, when you do the races anyway, those kind of races, you're with yourself for a long time, and you kind of just have to talk yourself through it. I mean, I also have a very supportive network. You know, my friends are amazing, my family amazing, and the Instagram community I follow are just amazing as well. And I think a part of, especially finishing that the second 100K I did, a big part of it was, I was like, I can't I can't post again that I failed. I can't, after all this build up again, I was like, I can't go back to them again and say I failed. There was a lot of people, you know, supporting me. I was doing it as well as a part of fundraising for Parkinson's, because my dad had Parkinson's. And a lot of people had donated and were like, yes. And I was wearing the Parkinson's shirt, and I was like, I can't let them down this time. And it is, you know, so I have that side of things, so not letting other people down. But then there's also the me. I was like, I can't let myself down. I was like, all this training I've put myself through, all the, you know, the headaches and like the making myself go out for these runs, and I was like, I can't let that be for nothing.
Races, but you said that you got asked to go to the HMDS. Mm-hmm. Now, I actually, when you said that, in my head, I was like, HMDS, what's that one? I was like, I know what the MDS is, but what's the HMDS? And then I looked and I was like, oh, and I didn't even know it was there. So this is the Half Marathon des Sables in Peru.
Yes.
I know. How did this come about?
It was really random, actually. So it was actually I'd actually applied. I'd been using the kit for a while, the WAR kit for a while, and they were looking for ambassadors. So I kind of applied, and I was like, oh, you know, I've been wearing your kit for a while. I wouldn't mind being an ambassador. And I got an email back, and they were like, well, you know, we're not going to have you be one of our ambassadors, but we'd still like you to invite you to do this race. And they were like, just wear our kit. I was like, fine, okay. And again, in typical fashion, I had 3 weeks to prepare for it, and I had nothing. I'm so used to the English countryside, like I didn't even own a set of poles at this point. It didn't even cross my mind that I would need poles in the desert. And yeah, I had nothing. So it was 3 weeks of absolute scrambling. Like, yes, I have to do this, but oh my God, I've got so much to do. But yeah.
Right. So how was it? How was that kind of experience then? Because obviously there might be a fair few people that have done quite a bit of hiking and things like that, and there might be a few people that are taking on, like on the Helvellyn Challenge, the Apex Challenge, and some of the footage I've been seeing recently is crazy. The snow up the top of the mountains and people hike up down. It looks amazing. But how was it over there? Because I mean, I'm assuming the weather must have been a huge part of that race and stuff. So how did the weather kind of change and implement your kind of your racing experience, and like maybe what you had to kind of think about as you were going through the race?
I think the weather was the biggest impact. I mean, so it was the distance itself wasn't that big of a face, because it was 120 kilometers, but it was split out over 3 days with the rest day in the middle, very much like the full MDS. And I was like, oh, it'll be fine. And then on the kit list they'd sent out, they'd said things about, oh, you must have salt tablets and you must bring the ability to carry, you know, 3 or 4 liters of water. I was like, it won't be that bad. And I turned up and it was roasting. It was December, so it was very cold here, and then went over there and it was just absolutely, yes, roasting. So the biggest thing there was making sure that I was taking in enough electrolytes and salt and water, and yeah, that was a tough part of it.
Do you think that's kind of played a big part to how you now look at your race prep for future races and things? Like, have you got like a real dialed in kind of formula now for you going, right, that's my electrolytes, that's how much I take, that's when I take it, and you've has that kind of taught you that tough but very worthwhile lesson?
Yes, definitely. I mean, I'll wear a pack when I run. I'll have a 500 milliliter squishy bottle in each pocket one will be electrolytes, one will be water, and it's sip of electrolytes, sip of water. Because if you get to a point in a race where you're thirsty, it's too late. You haven't drunk enough by that point. You shouldn't be getting thirsty.
Yeah.
And that's definitely what I learned there.
Your first experience of Helvellyn didn't necessarily go to plan, right?
It did not, no. No, so I was there a couple of years ago. It was 2021 actually, and I'd done a few different mountains, even in the Lake District, and I'd tackled, I had done, you know, Scarfell Pike and other big ones, and I had, I had one day when I was like, okay, we're going to climb Helvellyn today. I was with my partner, and we started off, and I think I'm like underestimated what a beast it was, and I got maybe 3/4 of the way up, and it was my knees again. I just hadn't. I think because I'd underestimated it so much, I hadn't done the training I needed to do, and it's a lot of stepping to get up there. And yeah, 3/4 of the way up, I sat down, cried, of course. I was like, I can't do this. I was like, this is not my time. And my partner was like, are you sure? I was like, do you want to carry on? And I was like, no, because if I carry on, I will hurt myself more, and then the recovery will be longer. And I was like, no, let's just go back down. So we went up to the little tarn, just as you're on Helvellyn and you look down, you can see the main tarn. So we sat there and had lunch and then went down. And we rushed down as well because we were running out of time on the car parking, but that's what I blame it on. The first time did not go well at all. Didn't summit.
So how and when did you sort of gain your redemption on Helvellyn?
So that was last year. So pretty much a year later, actually, we went back, and I think January of last year, I started going to the gym more, and I was like, if I want to continue, if I want to make, these events and these mountains a part of my life, I need to be able to support it. So I started going to the gym, started using the step machine, and just started doing the strength and conditioning to support it. And we went back last year, and I had the aim in my head that I was like, no matter what other mountains I do, I will summit Helvellyn. And I did. I went back, and it was still fine. But
what did you feel like when you were like? So let's imagine that you got out your car, your pack's on, and you literally go right, and you start the walk. What were you feeling like when you were approaching Helvellyn? You were thinking, right, here we go. What was going through your mind?
I honestly didn't have too much faith in myself. I think even though I'd done more work, I still had it in my head that I'd failed so soon on it that I just wasn't convinced how much further I would get past that point. And yes, I mean, whenever you kind of set off on a hike, you kind of put your backpack on, you're like, oh, right. And then you've got the whole thing ahead of you still to go. And I think I got to the point, I went a slightly a longer but more gradual route last time. And I think last time I went up too steep, too fast, and it just took it out of me. So we changed the route, and it was slightly more gradual. And I got to the elevation that I failed at last time, and I kind of assessed, and I was like, no, I'm good. And then carried on. And then I was like, right, should we do Striding Edge or should we do the other way? I was like, let's do Striding Edge. And the weather was lovely. I would say never do it unless the weather is absolutely tip top. But yeah, for us, it was amazing. And yes, went over that way, and then got to the top. And I was like, well, I did it.
Now I see what all the fuss was about. This is brilliant.
Right? I was like, great.
Amazing. So okay, so a couple. All right, so we're going to go into sort of a few quicker questions and stuff. So, do you feel like you've still got any unfinished business with Helvellyn? Is that why you're doing the Apex Challenge, or do you feel like you're kind of you're more friends with Helvellyn now, so it's all right? You're just gonna.
I'd say I'm more friends with it now. I think I've done it once. I can do it 9.2 times, right?
It sounds mental. The amount of people that I've been talking to recently, We were at the expo, the outdoor expo over the weekend. That like the team was all kind of spaced out throughout it, and I was bumping into people, and they were saying, "Well, yeah," I was talking to them. They're like, "You're going to do what?" I was like, "Yeah, it sounds a bit mad, I know, but it's why not?" And they were like, "How many people have you got signed up?" I was like, "You'd be surprised. It's pretty full." And they were like, I might have to look into this, and it is crazy. So, okay, so Hellbell, and obviously this time it's 9.2 times, so it's going to be a tough thing. So, are you doing anything different regards your training now, or are you kind of sticking with that program that you know worked, doing your gym, doing that, or are you incorporating anything new in your strength training to kind of help towards this bigger event?
I will still follow getting close to the event. I'll have my two sides. So I'll have my distance side of things, because I was sat in the pub yesterday having a Sunday roast, and I kind of looked at it and I was like, hang on, this is 9.2 times of 11.67 kilometers or whatever it is. And I was like, this is still essentially 107 kilometers. I was like, this is still massive distance wise. And it just never, I know it sounds stupid, but the distance didn't occur to me. It was the ascent. And then I was like, no, it's the distance as well. So I had a little bit of a moment. But yeah, so the distance is one side of it. And then obviously the strength and conditioning needed is again on another level, because it's Everest. It's
Yeah.
massive.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot of people. I think that we've been talking to. There's a lot of people that are underestimating, like one, the sheer volume of calories that are going to be required to complete this. Because there's a lot. Because you think about how many calories you burn going up and down a mountain once, and then you think about how many more calories your body burns on repair, and then how many more calories your body burns when the weather isn't quite right, and then when you're fatigued and tired and stuff. So it is going to be a relentless kind of thing. So the muscles are going to need quite a lot. So I think it's key that people are getting that strength and endurance in. I think it's kind of key to really find a balance between those programs. So how are you kind of doing your split? How many sort of strength sessions are you doing a week, and how many kind of mileage sessions are you doing a week?
So I go to the gym in the mornings before work, and it's normally 2 to 4 day. I need to get better at it. Ideally, I'll be going 3 to 4 times a day, a week.
Hey?
A day, a week.
You're a machine.
No.
She's there at work. Come on. Just marching out on the treadmills at work.
A week. If only I had that time. And just focusing on a bit of a different session each time. So I'll do legs one session, and then I'm really focusing on trying to get my core and back strength up as well, because that's just obviously the center of everything. Everything kind of feeds off of your core. And then at the end of each, I'm doing time on the Stairmaster as well. Strength side, and then cardio side. I haven't done as much cardio as I would have liked to, so I'll be doing the 16-week 100k plan as the event comes up, but there's still 8 weeks between then and now, so I'm currently trying to build base by following a half marathon plan, because that gets you to a good starting point to then start the 100k.
Last kind of couple of questions then, because we're rapidly running out of time. So we always kind of ask people a few questions around the Apex Challenge themselves. So one of the main things that we wanted to ask everyone is, if you could describe, or you could sum up the Apex Challenge in one word, what would that one word be?
Perseverance.
Perseverance, physically, perseverance, mentally, or a bit of both?
Oh, both, absolutely. But your body can carry you. If you do the work, your body will carry you. It's your brain, it's your mind that will crumble first. It will go, I can't do this, and your body will go, oh yeah, no, I can't, can I?
Have you got any top tips that you use when you're like in like a dark moment? Have you got, because I know, like, I've spoken to some people who like to do like they play like maths games in their head, and they're like, so I've done this many miles and I've got this many to do, but then they break it down into, and they just occupy their brain slightly by figuring out sums and things like that. But have you got any tricks that you kind of go, right, when I know this part's happening, this is what I kind of do? Or is there like a mantra that you have or anything? Or
Yes, I mean, if it comes to ascent, sort of things, I'll do, say, 50 feet and then stop and have a Haribo, and I'm like, that's my treat. And then you carry on, and it ticks on quite quickly. Again, the distance thing. So I've got, I've got 10K. So all I have to do is 10 of 1K. I can do a 1K, and then I can do another 1K. And that's sort, and just
Yeah.
absolutely just breaking it down. And then I have a playlist that I have, that if I'm really pit bottom, will just, it's just like stupid kind of motivational songs, really.
Yeah, no, but say stuff works, it works. It's
Mhm.
really key. Okay, and then the final question that we will ask, obviously this is the Apex Challenge. It's about accumulating the total height of Mount Everest. So we always ask everyone, what is your Everest?
What is my Everest? I think for this event especially, it just finishing, just getting myself to the finish, I think, because as easy it is to say I've done it once, I can do it 9.2 times. It's, yeah, just make getting myself, I mean, it, generally in life, getting myself, finishing something, because I'm very good at backing out early, if I don't feel it. But yeah, in life and in this event specifically, yeah, my Everest will be just
To
getting
finish.
there.
Awesome. Jess, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming in. Thank you for letting our community meet you. It's been absolutely wonderful. And mental note made, I can tell that you obviously like a Haribo. So I'll make sure there's a little pack of Haribo. And if I see you struggling, I'll just
Just
deal you
lob
out
them at me.
a couple of Haribos. Thank you so much, Jess. It's been an
Thank
absolute
you.
pleasure. Guys, it has been awesome. I love doing these interviews. I love getting to meet our community. I love getting to share our community with everybody else. And look, the more of you we bring together, the better it's going to be. So if you haven't yet signed up, there's still plenty of time to join the Apex Challenge, and I'll catch you on the next one.